Well, one of the first orders from President Donald Trump was to do away with diversity and inclusion initiatives. So how has the US been adapting to this? To tell us more, Joydeep Hor from employment law firm People+Culture Strategies joins me now. Great to see you, Joydeep. So how do you see the US basically learning how to deal with this?
Yeah, well, it's certainly sent shockwaves in some ways in terms of the speed with which this was implemented. I think this was day one of the new presidency. It was something that had been telegraphed throughout the course of the campaign, but I think even then people didn't really know the extent to which it was going to be implemented. This is very significant because, I mean, if you look at the trend within employment landscapes around the world, particularly in the US, diversity, equity, inclusion have been very big focal areas for employers, for businesses, for society as a whole, pretty much over the last decade or so. So what this really does is it does more than throw a spanner in the works, because it requires those employers, effectively as a matter of law, to unwind a lot of those initiatives. And it's not just a recommendation or a suggestion. If you have these initiatives in place still post these executive orders having been made, then you're compromised, and in some instances, to the best of my understanding, you're unable to be selected for government contracts, and there are a range of other consequences. So it's putting US businesses, employers, range of other organisations in a very difficult position, because in order to perhaps maintain their viability, maintain their existence, they're going to have to undo something that's been a huge part of their brand, of their values, of their mission for the better part of the last decade and even more. So this is really big. And the discussions that I've been having with my clients that are based in the US is that this is proving to be very difficult, because getting the messaging right is not easy. Dealing with feedback from employees who are questioning whether their employers have any backbone, have any character in these kinds of situations is proving to be really challenging.
And do these businesses have better things to be doing? I mean, they are spending all this energy on this, unwinding these enforcements. So how are they faring?
Well, absolutely. I think anything that involves undoing practices that you've spent probably a lot of time doing, consulted with your workforce, probably got lawyers to look at policies, all sorts of things that would have taken up time. And you think that you're doing it in the best interests of your organisation, and then all of a sudden you have to undo that. And it's not something that you're undoing because you or your CEO or your leadership team thinks is a good thing to do. It's something that is effectively imposed on you. So yeah, absolutely, this is a distraction. But I think the view from most of those employers is, well, we sort of don't have any choice, because if the option for us is we maintain that those things are important things for us and for our people, then how do we survive in a competitive market where other employers are going to say, if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do. We just need to keep making money and keep getting business.
Do you see this impacting the workforce in the sense that perhaps people will decide to relocate?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no question that there are so many people that I'm speaking to in the US who, across a range of things that are happening, are concerned, are troubled. They don't really know where things are going to end with a lot of these changes. They're having to make a lot of very big decisions as to their future, and whether that future, at least for the next few years, is going to be in the US. In terms of what it means for employees and the workforce at large, it's really difficult, because there are a lot of people who work in these very organisations who have been the beneficiaries of a lot of these policies. And for them, I imagine there's going to be a lot of questioning as to what is the value that they now add to an organisation. Is there a risk that their employment is going to be now assessed very differently given the new framework? Will they have jobs? And more importantly, what does it mean for people's opportunity to get employment in an environment where a lot of the things that were protections for them, indeed enhancements for them, are pretty much done away with?
And looking at the Australian landscape, do we do this well here? How far have we come over the past few years?
Yeah, it's a really great question, because similar to the US, we've invested a lot of time. The Australian industry, Australian employers have done a huge amount of work in this space, and some of that work has been excellent. And I think the experience of most employers around the country would be that while it hasn't been easy at all times, where they've invested the right kind of energy, they've got some very good results in terms of their hiring practices, their culture, their values, the people they've got as part of their organisations. A lot of these Australian employers are, of course, subsidiaries or satellite offices, very big satellite offices of larger US companies. And the challenge for those organisations is going to be, how do you now create a narrative for your Australian workforce, for your Australian employees, that says, well, sorry, but this is something that we really have very limited influence over, because our US parent company has said this is something that you have to do, because we can't have a situation where these rules just apply to us in the US and different rules apply in Australia or anywhere else in the world. This is going to be a really significant messaging challenge for Australian employers, particularly those who have headquarters in the US. Not an easy one. And the reality is that Australian laws are different. I mean, these executive orders do not apply to Australian employers in that direct sense. So it's going to be more one of influence and consistency that drives a lot of the decision making in this space.
And if employers are radically changing their policies like this, what kind of ramifications could that have for their businesses and I guess the way their employees see them?
Yeah, so at an extreme level, it could lead to claims brought by employees that their contracts have been breached. It could lead to industrial disputation that's agitated by unions and others. The reality is, as I was alluding to before, that this is not the Australian government that's passed these laws. So the employers in Australia do not have the justification of saying this is something we have to do in accordance with our law here. So that's probably the most significant risk that employers are going to face. But I think the other area is that messaging piece, that level of engagement and alignment that employees feel towards their employer, feel towards the employer's brand. And again, that question about, does my employer really stand for anything? Or was all of this done to pay lip service, and then when the rubber hits the road, it's all done away with, and they don't really care about diversity, they don't really care about equity. And if that's the perception, then a lot of employees, I think, will talk with their feet.